My name is Kareem Weaver, and I'm a longtime educator, community advocate for education. I have been working in public schools for a long time and trying to get kids to read. And the last 4 years, I've really been focusing on school systems around the country, K-12, but also universities, how they prepare our teachers. But that's me. I'm a Bay Area guy, born and raised in the Bay Area, and loved being an educator, absolutely loved it. But at some point I realized the kids can't read, so what are we going to do about that? To me, that's the central question, and it's a matter of civil rights. I've also worked with groups like the NAACP, who are one of the nation's oldest civil rights organizations, and they've made this a priority as well. So happy to work under their leadership and guidance and in partnership with others. But that's who I am. I'm just trying to get kids the opportunities they need to be successful in life, and literacy is at the heart of that. We have so much potential. Our kids have so much potential. And although sometimes we try to tell kids what they want to do or what they should be doing, their kids are brilliant. All races, all classes, ethnic groups, language backgrounds, kids are brilliant. But we're not cultivating that talent. And so these major issues we have in society, they can only be solved if we're able to get our kids to the point where they can address them. So the cure for cancer is probably locked up in a kid's mind right now who can't read. That's an issue. And it's not just from medical, you're talking about from a business standpoint, job creation, family stability, mental health, you name it. This is the bedrock. This is the foundational element of society, and our kids deserve that. They deserve a fighting chance, not to be told what to do, but to be prepared to figure out what they want to do and go after it. So that's what drives me. I want to unlock our kids and give them the chance that we had. I learned to read. I was fortunate enough. I was blessed to be able to learn to read. Who am I to deny that right to other people? So that's what drives me and motivates me. So what I found was that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. That was the biggest surprise to me. I thought, oh, well, there must be some great secret. There's no great secret. This has been around for decades, for generations. The evidence has been very clear. The research consensus has been very clear for a long time. If you want kids to read, these are the things you got to do. Now, kids can learn to read a variety of ways, but we're talking about getting the greatest number of kids possible to read. And to do that, there's some evidence that shows structured literacy works, as opposed to being unstructured. Groups like the American Federation of Teachers have been saying this for decades. People like Marva Collins have been saying this for generations. But we just have been distracted. And it makes no sense that the evidence is out there, the research is there, and we're not following it. That is beyond incomprehensible. It makes you wonder, is this intentional? How can we just ignore what works? We don't even talk about what works. So I've dedicated my life in my nonprofit organization to making sure we're focusing on what works. Forget about the tribes, politics, and whatever else. Just focus on what works for our kids, how we get them to learn to read and read in a way that opens up the world for them. That's the whole thing. That means the curriculum that they're using has to have evidence of success. That means when they have a teacher contract, the teachers need to have time to prepare so they can do the things they need to do to reach kids. That means when we have our cabinets, our structure at the top of leadership and districts, that there's somebody in there that represents literacy. They're focused exclusively on literacy at the highest level of the organization. That means when we do our budgets, we talk a lot about how much we care about kids and we love kids and all. That's fine. But show me your calendar, your curriculum, and your budget. That'll let me know where you stand on literacy and on kids. Those things have to line up for what's in kids' best interests. And at the end of the day, we have to be willing to look at our universities. Otherwise, this challenge will just keep on going. Universities have to prepare teachers to face the real challenges that they're going to be dealing with in schools. That means we can have all the theories we want to, but when I show up as a teacher on day one, am I prepared to teach a kid to read? When I paid my money as a graduate student, did I get that skill? Did I develop and cultivate that skill? If not, then that university is on the hook. They have to be accountable, and that's our Department of Education, our legislature. There has to be something to hold them accountable to say, listen, this is a public service, especially the public universities. You have to prepare folks to teach kids to read because this is in the public's best interest. That's why we're paying you. So those are some of the things that the public can do. And I'd say the biggest thing the public can do is be in partnership and go together in coalition. It's the hardest thing by far. That's Democrat and Republican. That's black and white. That's multilingual and monolingual. That's whatever group you can think of. Everybody wants their kids to read. This may be the one thing we can actually agree on. This may be the one thing, and we'd be fools not to do it. We have to go together in partnership. And when you do that, that's a unique pressure. It's a unique force on the systems to change, as opposed to one special interest or one particular group advocating for something. You go together and it boxes them in. And it means that it's not just about me, it's about us. That's a completely different dynamic and a completely different level of urgency. So that's what the public can do. Go together, advocate for reading, and make sure our university partners are doing what they're supposed to do as well. I hear about relationships all the time. We need relationships, healthy, structured, professional, supportive, edifying relationships with our students. Yes, and. Everybody's different. Educators are different. They're not a monolith. Different cultures, men, women, years of experience. And I can remember my son's kindergarten teacher, Mrs. King, who was like a grandmother. He loved Mrs. King. And the relationship we had with her and that he had with her was unique. A first-year teacher or a fifth-year teacher is not going to respond the same. They're not Mrs. King. Relationship matters, but it shouldn't be forced. People have to be comfortable in their own skin. What I need our educators to know is that there is no archetype. People like to say, oh, we need more black educators. We need more male educators. We need more bilingual educators or Latino educators. We need more educators who are ready. We need more educators who know how to teach a child to read. There's nothing wrong with having black teachers, and I think it's wonderful to have teachers represent the totality of children's experience and backgrounds, et cetera. That's great. And we need people who on day one are ready to teach, that can build skill, who are prepared, they're well trained, they have the systems and structures in place. That's the biggest advocacy they can provide, is to support a child's literacy journey. I tell people all the time, love is a lesson plan. You're ready to teach. My love for you shows up in how I prepare for you. If I care for you, if I really love you, then I'm ready for you. All of you, I'm ready for you. I'm prepared for you. You may have dyslexia, you may have a certain background or whatever. I'm ready for you. That's love because I'm giving you my time. And anyone can do that. Now, it may look and sound different based on culture and who we are as people. Absolutely. What's important, though, is to know that when people are prepared to teach children to read, their job satisfaction goes up, their stress goes down, they're able to connect better with the children. I've always said, everybody's an angel until stress comes. When you're stressed, when you don't know what to do and you're frustrated, that's when things come out. Our tempers get short, our nerves get frayed, and I don't care what color you are. It's tough. But when we're ready, and we know how to teach children the way they need to be taught, it's amazing how much more bandwidth we have, and we can engage more fully in every aspect of the field. But when you're stressed and you don't know what to do, and the materials aren't right, and the leadership's not right, and the curriculum's not right, and your training's not right, you're just operating in survival mode. The culture is only going to take you so far. It's the conditions in which life grows, it's culture, but you actually have to grow the thing. You have to be prepared to do the thing. And so I love having a diverse workforce. We need a prepared workforce first and foremost. I think it's the height of cynicism for us to say, well, we just need more teachers who look and sound like this. How does that work? First of all, there's a teacher shortage. We don't have enough teachers, period. And it's nice to be able to have folks who can connect culturally. But I have news for people. Children are not a monolith in any group. Black people aren't a monolith. Latinos aren't a monolith. They're folks who are completely different culturally. Not just because of where their parents come from or grandparents come from, but just culturally. There are subgroups in every ethnic. White people are not a monolith. I didn't know that for a long time. People who from Scotland have different culture than people from France, very much so, or wherever. We make assumptions about people and that we assume that because we look the same or we sound the same that we can connect. Yeah, no. Sometimes it's great. But there's a difference. Black folks in the South versus us over here in the West, we sound different, talk different. Sometimes we act different. We family now, but we're not all cut the same. And so my point with that is that we have to get beyond. We can pay attention to color and all that. That's fine. Maybe that can be helpful. But we have to stop emphasizing the optics and what we signal and look at what we can do. You know, it's something that as a country we struggle with. We take performance over policy. I want a person who's prepared. You can be Black. If you're unprepared, it's not going to do my child any good. I need a prepared teacher. And hopefully that teacher who's prepared then has the bandwidth to connect to my child, be supportive of my child, be encouraging of my child. And I think we also make the mistake of, it's not a think, as a parent, we make the mistake of thinking sometimes in education that we know best. So I'm going to share with you, I'm going to provide you guidance along these other areas, moral ideas and thoughts. People have a right to raise their children. They do. They just do. We can argue about it, but they have a right to raise their children. We may not always agree with that, but that's okay. Those are their kids. Our job as educators is to make sure we're preparing them and equipping them with the skills they need for college and career so they can be what they want to be and develop. That's our job. Give them the skills, help cultivate and develop their skills to mastery so they can go where they want to go. That's our challenge, and I think that's what we have to be mindful of.
Literacy initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah. So all around the country, people are trying to figure out this literacy work. And some are getting it right, and then there are some major pitfalls. Reinventing the wheel is a pitfall. It's nothing new under the sun. This isn't a pendulum swing. This has been done before. At the state level, at the county level, the district level, we just took 40 people up to Seaford, Delaware to see a district turn completely around. Why would I reinvent the wheel? I should go see and learn from them. I know the state of Mississippi is doing great things. They went from 50th in the country now to like 20th or 21. I should go learn from them. What did they do from a policy perspective or from an advocate's perspective? So some of the pitfalls are that we just don't do a good job with diligence and learning about what others have done before us that has worked. We also have to learn what didn't work. That's just as important. Saves time, energy, money, hassle, spirit, all the rest. So those are a couple things, but also some challenges around materials. For whatever reason, now I know for the non-educators, this will blow their mind. But in education, when we pick materials, oftentimes we don't actually see if it works. That's not part of the evaluation. Does it work? We have a rubric on all these different things. Does it have this? Does it reach that? Do you have this in the kit and that in the commit kit and this and that? Does it work? Regular people want to know, does it work? Is there evidence that it works? Third-party evidence, not publisher, like real evidence that it works. That should be the number one thing that we're looking at the state. When the state comes out with their list of curricula, it should be a list of these are the ones that work. Whatever else after that, fine. But start with that. And then, in addition to that, we have to be willing to match our programs with our structures. So, to put a finer point on that, most teachers in districts that are unified or they have a union labor association, they have a contract. And there's an amount of time that you get to prepare every week. Well, it's kind of like cooking a meal. if you have a recipe. I know how much time I have to cook. I'm going to pick something to cook that I can do and I can prepare in that time. You know, some meals, I can make a full-on spread. I can do the whole thing. I have the time. Others, I need a slow cooker, a crock pot. I'm going to put my ingredients in there, simmer it low, and let it cook. And it's going to be great, but I have to know my time. School districts, for whatever reason, they don't pick things that are connected to their actual time. You want to be a French chef, but you need to make a stew. You need a crock pot. You only have 100 minutes a week, 200 minutes a week, 250, but we pick materials that take 4 and 5 and 6 hours to prepare. And that's just in reading. That time has got to work for math and science and history and all the rest. It makes no sense. That's where community has to get involved. And that's where states have to get involved to say, Mr. and Miss Publisher, you should put on the side of your box how much time this takes to prepare. There's some districts that can look at that and say, oh, that's not for us. Or maybe we'll consider this because it fits our structure. But no one's demanding that from them. And that's a problem. And I will say this, though. Not to defend publishers, but I've heard them say this to me. Kareem, you say that preparation time matters. You say that evidence of results matters, but they don't say it. You were saying, you're going around the country talking about how much preparation time matters. We haven't had a school system yet ask us how long it takes to prepare. Not one. Not one. So at a certain point in time, you have to ask yourself, what are we, the public, demanding from our public servants? They have to prioritize the things that we think are important. I actually think results matter. I want my children to read. I love the brochure. I love the pictures of smiling faces on there. Does it help my child to read? And do you have evidence of that? If you don't have evidence of that, why are you even considering that when our scores are what they are for our kids? And if you have a teacher's contract that says they have this much time to prepare, I expect you to pick something that can be done in that amount of time, especially when all we hear as community advocates is that the children who takes the longest to prepare for are the ones who need consistent, systemic, or systematic instruction. Well, if they take longer, then I have to make sure then that these materials can be done at prep time, because the ones that are the furthest from opportunity need the most structure, support, and preparation. Otherwise, we're just virtue signaling. We're saying we love these kids. Oh, look at the Latino kids or the Black kids. Yeah, but we're not prepared for them. And when we picked materials, we didn't consider them. I have no patience for that. And as a taxpayer, as a resident, as a father, as a community member, we have to demand more. The virtue signaling is over. We need stuff that works. We need teachers who are prepared. That means universities have to get off their stool and work with the K-12 system to make sure they're giving the educators what they need so they can go into the classroom ready. There comes a point where you have to say enough is enough. Enough is enough. The system has to work. It shouldn't be about a superstar teacher or principal or superintendent. The system has to work for our kids. Otherwise, you're going to have kids who fall through the cracks and never have access to being able to read. Well, policymakers have a role to play in this too. All across the country, states are looking at what are the policies that are going to help kids learn to read. There's a website, this group called Excel in Ed, and they give a policy map across the country. They identify 18 early literacy policies that should be in place. I think California has either 6 or 8, maybe 8 of those policies. We need more, we need better. There are some states like New York that have 0. Then you have ones like Mississippi that have 17 out of 18. And then we wonder why they went from 50th to 21st, passing California. It's because someone in there decided we're gonna make this our Waterloo. This is where we're gonna stop and drop our bucket. We're gonna make sure this is right. The policies have to be right. So that's why when COVID hit, some states, they may have wobbled a little bit, but they didn't fall down because the policies were in place. Those are the guardrails. Others completely fell apart because there's nothing to protect the kids. There was no structures in place, no policies in place. It was left up to individual schools and teachers and principals and districts. From a systemic perspective, policy allows us to weather the storm. It guides us, it protects us, it keeps us sometimes from acting too hastily. And it says, this is what we, the people, want and demand. Policies have to be right. Legislators can do that. So California just now mandated screening, universal screening for K-2 for dyslexia. That's a big thing forward. I think we're the 32nd or 33rd state to do that. Fantastic. That's great. That's one policy that's in place. I believe that was Senator Portantino who did that, who led that. That's fantastic. But there's more work to do. What are the policies around universities? Who's monitoring them? Are they aligned to the science and the research consensus around best practice? Who's responsible for making sure that the methods classes they're using are aligned to the research? I can tell you it's an issue. It's an issue because they've been, for the most part, operating free range for generations. Some are doing a very good job, and some are trying their hardest to get in line with that and figure out how they can leverage their expertise to really move the field forward and to double down on the things that matter most and get their methods class aligned. But not all. There are some who are preparing teachers today to guess words and use context clues and to do things that research says just doesn't work for the majority of kids. And there is a teacher shortage. We need people, but we need people to be ready. And if they're getting public money, they got to be responsible to the public. Legislation helps, but it also helps to have good leadership at the dean level, at the president level. You know, you cannot be a Carnegie level 1 institution and get all this research money and then you're not using the research about how kids learn to read. That's a problem because that actually shows up in how our kids thrive or don't. I have a lot to say on that, but we have a lot of work to do in that area. And like I said, there are some colleges, I'm not going to name them all here, but there are some, we work with some of them who are really trying to make some shifts and thinking through some of the new literacy mandates and standards and things that come from the state. Others not so much, and it's a challenge. It really is. Yeah, so this is what I would say for educators, community leaders, people who want to make these shifts and who really want to drive the ball forward. One, this is a season of learning. We all have it. We have to make sure that we're being diligent learners and seeking out best practices, examples of success. Don't over-index on theories. Go look to see what works and study it. Who could argue with that? That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to offer yourself and your colleagues some grace. And that's tough when we're in a field where we feel as if it's all on our shoulders. And so when things don't go well, or if we reflect and think, hey, I may have done something in the past unknowingly that didn't give kids the best opportunity to learn and thrive. That's a heavy burden to bear. And a lot of educators get stuck right there. And some just leave the profession. It's just too much. And I understand that, but what I'm urging them, beseeching them, begging, imploring them to do is to offer themselves grace. It's not a matter of absolution or being caring or not. It's just we have to move forward. We can't get stuck in the past. We can't get stuck in regret and woe and thinking about opportunities that we lost to support kids. It can be painful, but we have to move forward. We just have to, as a sector, for schools, for individual teachers, for principals, for superintendents, for school boards. What it doesn't mean, though, is it doesn't mean that we should deflect or we should avoid or disengage from community or try to hide. No, just be honest. We blew it. We made some mistakes. We followed the trends instead of the research consensus. We went with what was popular instead of what had evidence of working. We didn't do the diligence we needed to engage and vet not just curriculum, but also our university partners. We're not strategic in how we partner with universities. We haven't identified our best teachers who could be mentors for the trainees. There's enough regret for everyone. Parents have the same thing. If a child struggles for a long time and we haven't been able to support them and give them what they need, then we find out, oh, you mean they just weren't taught? What was I doing? Was I working so hard that I wasn't paying attention to my child's learning? That's tough for parents to wrestle with. We've had NAACP meetings where people are crying when they realize it. Same thing. You got to offer yourself grace. And as a parent, that's when you got to put on your Superman cape as a mom or a dad or a grandparent or uncle or aunt, and you have to, hard war, easy peace. School system, the principals, whoever in charge, the board members, you want to work with them. You want to be a support for them if possible. And as they work towards improvement and supporting your child going forward, great. That's what you want. You have to come with peace. But if not, if there's just resistance, if there's evasion, you have to be willing to advocate for your child unapologetically. I don't care how it makes you look. You may lose or jeopardize associations and friendships. They may not ask you to volunteer. They may not ask you to drive anymore to the field trips. Sometimes it is what it is. It's your child first. And most educators understand that. So if you come at them in a way that's respectful and responsible, you'll find that they're on your side. They want your kid to learn too. They know about the curriculum and the university that prepped them in the professional development and the budget and all they know that. They want you to go do that. Teachers and parents should be partners in this thing. This is not to go along to get along time. It's just not. This is kids first over all else. And we hope that, speaking on the community side, we want to partner with educators to make that happen. And hard war, easy peace. It's a mantra that I keep close to my heart. And wouldn't you know it, when people know you're serious, you'll find out that they're serious too. Teachers want kids to learn. Principals want kids to learn. And if you're constructive and you start from a positive lens and you're willing to engage them in a constructive manner, you find the best allies ever. They might need your support and protection though, but they'll be an ally, usually, more often than not. There was a time when administrators, whether they be a superintendent or a principal or some other role, were managers. They manage the system, they manage the employees, and that's fine. There's a role for management. But we have to understand the season we're in. This is the time for instructional leadership. We actually need people who can lead based on instruction. That means the principal should be in the professional development right alongside the teacher, so that when they go in that classroom, they can offer feedback. They can help them improve their practice. That's not what you do from your office recliner. That's not something you do from your desk. You have to get out and be an instructional leader and give feedback consistently that's actionable, that people can grow from. And if that's not where you're at, then you have an option. You either can begin the process of developing your own practice, whether it be instructional chops or your communication skills or whatever, or this might not be your season. And that just has to be said. We need people to support the growth and the learning and this journey that is scary and important and all the rest. So I would just hope that leaders at the site level and the system level would really reflect on where they're at in their own professional arc and see what they need to do so they can be who the teachers need them to be so they can be successful for kids' sake. That's really important, and it's not emphasized enough. Leadership matters, but it's got to be prepared leadership.